This pain is real. And I don't see it ever going nowhere. You know, I'm working 2 jobs. I can't make everything. And, you know, next thing you know, I look back in my boy eyes and nothing. It was just a cold, callous young man. He wasn't there anymore. I couldn't make him laugh. You know, every time I talked to him, Mama, what? Stay out my business, Mama. And, you know, that wasn't even my son talking to me any kind of way, wouldn't listen. And I tried, you know, I called people, I took them down to the church, got prayer for them. I did everything I could do, you know. But you know what happened? One day, I got that call to come and verify if that was my boy. And all the way to that emergency room, I was praying that wouldn't be my boy. I only to get there, and it was him. It was him. And my mind is racing. Who could have did this to my son? They could have come and talked to me. I could have worked it out. Whatever it was. But they took my boy from me. Only to find out later it was his friends. The ones he grew up with. And their mamas was hurting just as bad as me. Our mothers cried. Our mothers cried. Who taught my son how to kill and to be killed? Who did that? I didn't. I miss my son. Oh, God.
I cannot believe this. After 15 years on the job, and it's over just like that. I've been laid off with almost 1 million other people in the United States. I call unemployment. What a joke. It's going to take them 21 to 30 days just to process my claim. It's been a minute. I'm calling and calling. No response. I've been looking for a job, but COVID got everything and everybody on lock. I don't know if I should be paying rent or making arrangements to move. And this year was the year I was going to take the kids to Disney World. I need help.
So on October 31st of 2012, I got a phone call where my sister, there was something going on at my sister's apartment complex. So got my stuff together, got up, ran over there just to see the police, ambulance, everybody just out there and not knowing what's going on. So once everything calmed down, that's when I learned my sister was killed at the hands of her living boyfriend. Around 12 o'clock, the police officers got a phone call from the apartments complex stating that there was a scuffle and some stuff going on. Police officers got there, and she lives in the upper part of the apartments complex, so he knew when he was yelling and banging on the door trying to get someone's attention, was unable to get that attention of anybody. So after walking around, he left about 5 minutes later. Well, maybe about 10 minutes later or so, on video camera, and all of this is what we find out later, that the person who killed my sister, he had her car and he was driving out of the complex. So there were about 2 days that passed by and he turned himself in. With that being said, that night was a total transformation of my life as well as my family's lives. We in turn got custody, me and my husband took custody of my niece and nephew. Normally able to talk about it nowadays and not get so filled. But I'm thankful for where they are now from where I know they've come from. My nephew struggled a lot. He had a lot of anger issues, and this was at the age of 8 years old. He was very angry. It took a lot. I learned that he was more so running my sister's house and taking care of things. So coming into the house with me and my husband, it was a struggle for him to be there with structure. But he's doing so much better. He had to go through counseling. I'll then bring up to speed with my niece. She also, she did counseling for a little while. She didn't struggle. She's a lot like me. She's an introvert. She tends to hold things in, and then every now and again it'll just kind of come out, and that's how she handles it. Maybe a year after everything happened, she had a episode one night where she just woke up screaming and yelling for her mom. And that was a bittersweet moment for me because that was something she needed to do, and she had held so much stuff in for so long, and it was just like a release for her. And I offered her, do you want to go talk to a counselor? I think that'd be good for you to do now, and this like 12, 13 years age, and she's still saying no. But I still had that door open for her to speak with me. I really want my story, to let somebody else out there know that there's light. There is some place to go. There is that, that person that you can talk to. Granted, the domestic violence didn't happen to me directly, but I took on my sister's children. We got them counseling. My family's lives was turned upside down. I mean, I have 3 grown children right now, and when I got my niece and nephew, my baby was in the 9th grade. They helped out tremendously in keeping them grounded, showing them things. I mean, it was a crazy moment, but now when I look back on it, it was a moment that needed to happen. It helped to change the way I look at life. It helped change the way my husband looks at life, the way my children. I think we all just deal with things differently because of that bad moment that happened with my sister. But I know if she, her looking down at her 2 children right now, she's proud, she's smiling, she's super excited, and she's just thankful, just as I am, thankful and grateful. And I don't believe I didn't say this not one time in this whole thing. If it had not been for the Lord on my side and God, just God gracing my household and my family to do what we did, we would do it again. God forbid it ever happen again, but I'm just so thankful and so grateful for the Lord just directing us and guiding us. Even in our wrong, He still showed us the way we needed to go and the things we needed to do to even change the way we were doing things and to correct us, because what we did for our 3 children, it wasn't working for these 2 children. So we literally had to learn how to love on another set of kids, even though they were at my house almost every weekend. But when they're living with you, there's so much that you have to just change, and you have to learn about each other. And we did that, and we accomplished it. I'm thankful, I'm grateful, and I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything that we've been through.
As I look back over my life and the situations that are happening not only in the entire United States of America, but right in my own backyard. The hurt, the pain, the devastation, the broken hearts, and why when we go through tragedy, why is it so hard? Why it's so hard? And I heard so clearly he telling me that this was not the way he intended it to be. We want to beat up and abuse a person just because we don't do it the way that we think that they ought to do it. I took my eyes off of God and I began to hear the enemy speaking. And so when he would talk these loving and kind words to me and buy roses and take me out on all these fancy dinners, I just thought that I was the queen of queens and that I was the sparkle in his eyes and nobody else mattered to him but me. Until one awful night, when after he drank and became drunk, and he decided to go upside my head because he was jealous. Maybe he thought somebody in the restaurant was looking at me and I gave them a smile, and so the jealousy became. I couldn't work long hours anymore because he probably thought that there was a situation going on with me and the lawyers that I worked for. So all the jealousy and the control factor began to just overtake my life. And I share these situations because I was one of those persons that would always say, this will never ever happen to me. I learned not to say that anymore because it doesn't matter what your statute is. It doesn't matter what your employment, your title is. If the man or the woman wants to beat you, that's just what they're going to do. But because of my status, I tried to hide it so that nobody would see the tears that was falling down. I would walk in the office all the time with a smile and just want to be about the business. But on the inside, I was constantly breaking down. And then you're fearful because even when I would go and talk to individuals about the situation, there was no compassion. There was no empathy. I wasn't looking for sympathy, but just some empathy. Somebody that would just sit there and listen and not tell me about what they would do or how they would act, because until you walk a mile into a woman's shoes who has gone through this and who have been abused and it's day and night, you can't imagine what happens behind the closed doors unless you're there behind the door. They pull you away from the individuals who really care about you. They want you totally to themselves. And the strange thing about this is that your family and your friends, they often say, he's such a good man. Boy, he treats you so good. Y'all make a great couple. And I know in the back of my head, my mind, I was always saying, if you only knew. But I played along with it, hoping that this night would be a good night. And so I know that even during this pandemic, domestic violence has absolutely risen. Why? Because, like for me, my job was my safe place. There was a place that I could go and I could be around individuals and I could exercise my mind and I could help others and not be criticized or ridiculed. I wasn't cursed or stumbled on. I wasn't spit at. I wasn't knocked aside. They respected who I am. And so with the pandemic, if individuals that are still in these abusive situations, they don't have that safe haven anymore. The children are not in the schoolhouses. So there's not the counselors or the teachers to monitor how they're acting. Is there a change going on in the household? So then the mandated reporters are no longer around the children, because what happens in the household, it often flurs right on into the school. There's something that's happening with them, but nobody's there to see it anymore, because everything now is completely shut behind the door. I cry out today and I ask that my neighbors, your neighbors, that they're more attentive. And I say this from experience. The night that I was pistol whipped, I was beaten, and he cocked the gun to my head, and I was trapped between the nightstand and the wall, and I was crying out. Nobody called the police. Nobody wanted to get involved. And I knew somebody had to hear me in there, but nobody did. But it was only by the grace of God that he suddenly uncocked the pistol and laid it down on the nightstand. And he reached his hand out to me to pull me up, because I was in a fetal position. I'll never forget it. I was in a fetal position, and I was crying out. I was like a baby, and I was like, how did I get myself into this, and why do I keep going back into these same situations over and over again? And the answer was because I was not seeking proper help. I wasn't going to the professionals that would help me get the help that I needed. I was relying on everybody but myself to get out of the situation. And this is why I stand firm on the grounds, and I speak as an advocate and say to you, do not criticize others. Listen to what they're trying to say, because they're crying out. They just might be talking your language, but they are speaking a language. And we have to be there. And you can't walk away from individuals who are in an abusive situation. You can't say, well, if she's just going to stay there, let her stay there. I ain't got nothing else to do with it. You just can't do that. Because the day that they call you for help and you don't answer may be the day that the next time you hear, they're no longer with us.
The first thing I'd like to tell people is you're doing time with your child. You're doing time. You can't talk to them, you can't, and with the pandemic it's worse. You can't talk to them, you can't see them. The other night I got no sleep because they keep moving him around. And that's not what's supposed to be going on. So I half slept, because you don't know where your child's laying his head. You don't know what kind of people he's around. You don't know, his offense is not violent, but you don't know where he is and what kind of people he's with. So I didn't sleep. Every 2 hours I woke up. When you don't have money and you're dealing with a public defender, it even makes it harder, because the public defenders are overwhelmed, overcrowded about what they're doing, and everybody's thing is to make a plea. Plus, he's not in the state of Georgia, he's in the state of North Carolina, so it is very, very difficult. We're supposed to be working on now him coming home, but then they'll have to do an interstate compact with North Carolina and Georgia. And North Carolina has some of the most ruthless, that's one of the most ruthless systems I've ever dealt with. Before he eventually took a plea because he was going to go to trial, his bail was $600,000. Equivalent here would have been about $50,000 or $60,000. He had people incarcerated with him who had $1 million bond. So What that was just saying is we just have no intention of you being out. I heard a congressperson state that we shouldn't give inmates stimulus checks because they don't add anything to the economy. That's a complete lie. Phone calls, toothpaste, personal hygiene items, all of this stuff has to be purchased. Food, because we're Muslims, so that he can eat. I have to make sure that I put enough money on his books so that he can eat. All books have to be sent, and you can't even purchase these things. It's not like I could have Amazon ship them to him. No, they have to be bought through an inmate store, which triples the rates. So don't tell me they're not added to the economy. They're seriously added to the economy. There's a whole industry around incarceration. He and I have had several conversations about the expectations of when he gets home, and one of the things I basically told him is that he has to change his people, places, and things. We can no longer continue on the path. You think that you can come home, be Muslim, and still hang with those folks, but you can't. You can't. You know how my household runs. You know what goes on in my household, and you know that you can't do that. On top of which, you've also created 2 children that you have to be responsible for. And I expect you to be. I expect you to be a man. I expect him to go to work. I expect him. You can't force anybody into religion, but you've reclaimed your Islam. Well, then I expect you to walk that walk. I expect you to be a father. My only concern is, as I tell people, getting jobs that really pay, even if you don't have a record in Savannah, jobs don't pay. They just do not pay. So I can't expect him to move out right away because it's going to take him a while to build up to that. I do expect him, aside from working, to improve his skill set. Otherwise, he'll be what I call modern-day sharecropper forever, because that's what I call it. You know, these jobs where you're never going to get ahead. It's sharecropping. Pay is not good. Rent is expensive. And folk are demanding child support. And then when you're a convicted felon, people just look at you funny, like you can't change your life. And that's not true. Everybody can change their life. In my age group, I am a 60s and 70s baby. If everything I did in that time period ever came back to bite me, I'd have never been anywhere. That's just the truth of the matter. People can change, people can grow, and we have got to stop making folk criminals criminalizing them for their whole life. So that's basically how I sincerely feel about it. I am a serious advocate of criminal justice reform. The system is a self-perpetuating money-making system. We have turned the criminal justice system into a business, and that needs to stop.
COVID is a very bad thing because I do not like COVID. I remember when this town used to be normal, happy, and no COVID. But since COVID come down, I did not like it. It's just a bad time. When you just think of it, it's not really good. You have to care about other people. They can be suffering or dying or had somebody who they lost. We all might be black or white, but that doesn't really matter. It just matters that we are different people, and people are us, and the people you see here in this neighborhood today are still the people that we know and that we love. It doesn't matter if it's white or black. We all have to care for each other. We all have to lift each other up. And it doesn't matter if you have a sister or a brother or an auntie, but it matters about family and people that love you.